Hi, Dennis. Thank you again. You've been really nice in humoring me in taking some of these calls. So for today, we promised everyone that we will be talking a little bit about technology and evidence-based creative teaching and how they actually fit and merge. So maybe you can walk us through today about how we can really make use, in light of today's situation with COVID and so forth, and where teaching is now really gone online and with so many new educational technology tools. How does one make sense of merging technology with evidence-based creative teaching?
Right, you're right, Mark. This is so current at the moment, and it's also confusing. And we work with teachers, and many of them, particularly some of the older teachers, certainly not all of them, but even younger ones as well, are really confused at how do we make sense of this and use technology in effective ways. So again, you know, when I was working with you, we did quite a lot of research over 5 or 6 years on this. So we'll summarize it here. Right?
And we did win the Blackboard for best e-learning site, remember?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. I didn't think of that, but I'm glad that you mentioned it because you've got the trophy in your office and it's not in mine. Okay, now to go straight in here, this is the big point, and it's quite straightforward for people that have watched episodes 1, 2, and 3. Should have a good understanding if you have done the deliberate practice. Should have an understanding of the I-Effect method concept as well as the core principles of learning. And this is the big point, that there is no shortcut to technology use. Miller, cognitive psychologist, basically, she says that quite simply, technology itself will not create a great lesson because there are fundamental truths about how we learn. And we know this from the core principles, that learning does require, on the part of the student, focused attention, effortful practice and motivation, plus our good teaching. So, but what technology does allow us to do, and this is a big point, is to amplify, expand the repertoire of techniques that effective teachers use to get attention, effort and engagement. And that's the big point. So if you produce a great lesson and it's got the right methods and you've used sound pedagogy, the core principles, then these technology tools can enhance aspects of the learning process. So in good old-fashioned English East London humour, in a nutshell, or is that North Country or Stoke? I don't know, it doesn't matter anyway. It's everywhere now. Technology can make a great lesson even better. So let's look at how we can do.
Yeah, but I think which you will cover, I'm sure, but I just want to give everybody a preempt. It is important, and I just want to emphasize this because you mentioned it in the previous chapters, that good learning design is the key, and technology helps to enhance it, and not technology for technology's sake. I think that needs to be made quite clear for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I don't know, you said that perfectly, because that's exactly the slides that are coming up now, that pedagogy must come before technology. And that's the key thing. And there's lots of reasons for this, because I remember 30 years ago when you were a young lad.
Still a young lad.
Well, you were even younger then. There was a lot of talk about a learning revolution. Technology was going to create this massive revolution, but the big problem is that whether we're looking at a computer screen or we're in class, our brain is essentially the same as it was ages ago. I mean, people say 50,000 years ago. There's even some research that says that the Neanderthal brain, now that was a long time ago, I guess, and early Homo sapiens, there's not much difference. So the big problem is that we are trying to get more and more information into a Stone Age brain, and that's not possible.
Yeah.
And so that's an important point. So we have to live with the brain as it is. We can't download information into neural networks. There is actually research going on in this area, but it's probably not going to be mainstream education for 5 years. Wouldn't it be nice? You can go in the lesson, wire up all the students, and suddenly, you know, they can speak fluent Mandarin or Czechoslovakian. Great. So technology will change, but good design is constant. So that is big point. Okay.
Yeah.
So now this is the big key concept slide that we keep talking about, that the importance of key concept. Good learning design, as we've seen prior, is always based on the sound pedagogy of evidence-based methods, core principles of learning. So this is the question you have to ask as a teacher. If an e-tool, any technology platform, any piece of technology that comes about, will it impact positively in some way some of the core principles of learning? And if it does, there's potential benefits. Obviously, other things come into play as well. Can you afford to buy the technology? Will it fit into your school-based IT systems? Those kind of things. But that is the essential question. And this is what we try to do. And this is what we can do with evidence-based creative teaching. We can build a good lesson and then select those e-tools that we think are going to be most effective, efficient, and engaging for our students, and we combine them. You may remember the Russian doll analogy. You do, Mark, don't you?
Yeah, and that's an important one. Yeah.
And it's not Maria Sharapova again, just in case, you know, there's some duplication in this. So this is a big thing. So by the creative blending of methods based on core principles and the infusion of these appropriate e-tools, that's what I would call real creative teaching competence. It goes back to that concept of adaptive expertise. When you can do that, you are well on the way to becoming an expert teacher in today's context.
Yeah, so I remember the triangle figure at the base: good pedagogic literacy, teacher competence, and now with technology, we have the opportunity to really become creative teachers.
Absolutely, that is absolutely the case. Now, there's a nice point here that if we go back 30, 40 years ago when I was a young teacher, and if you actually went into a lesson and you'd produce something on a Banda machine, students will go, wow, this is great. So, and I remember running off A-level sociology notes, some 1978, I think it was, and I spent thousands of hours, and I went in, I gave the students all these notes, run off on a Gestetner machine for all the different, and they looked at me as like I'd given them, you know, the biggest Christmas present in the world, because they were still used to, and this is scary, it may still be going on, teachers dictating notes to them. And I said to them, look, these are all the key notes. Yeah. You know, you can read through this and we can discuss it. And they loved it and they all did very well. So, so that's a big point there. Absolutely. Now, if we just go on, now when we start talking about technology today, we can say probably that from the research, our visual system is the most advanced. So there used to be a saying, a picture paints 1,000 words. Well, what does a good moving picture that you can stop, that can ask you questions, that you can communicate with the tutor and your peers, and you can go deeper and wider, something called augmented reality. The video is going to be perhaps the key learning object for the coming years. And Treadwell, in the book, The Future of Learning, makes those quotes, and it's worth looking at those because your ability to teach well and design and facilitate interactive videos is going to be pretty much central to your professional expertise.
Yeah, so, I happen to love videos, and I think that's the future, honestly, with things like social media, Netflix, and so forth, MOOCs. It's all video based. So I think he's a clever boy, Treadwell. I think that would be it.
Yeah, that is definitely the case. And what we're doing now with these video sessions, and let's be honest about it, particularly me, you're a bit of a techie expert, but I'm very much still in the novice stage, that we're able to be in different countries. Both be on video. We can look at content. We could share videos. We're sharing stories. We're sharing examples. We can put hyperlinks into this for people to connect to other. It is such a great organizing platform.
Yeah.
And we mentioned augmented reality. If you look at the research on artificial intelligence and things like virtual learning and virtual reality and mixed reality. These are not going to be part of mainstream education yet because they're so expensive to produce. But increasingly, aspects of augmented reality will come in. So good videos designed on evidence-based creative teaching principles and practices, coupled with interactivity and augmentation. That's a big, if you like, teaching and learning competence. And people will have to learn how to do that. And people like you will be teaching them.
No, I've seen really such things like augmented reality, you know, for the longest time. And my favorite example is that of the medical profession. And you have the picture there. You know, when they talk about the heart, you know, and they look at the static picture in the textbook. I mean, with technology today, it can be so creative enough for you to tilt it at different angles to see the blood flow, to see the veins, to see the arteries. So I think that helps to create a lot of good visuals. But I think right now, technology also offers you the opportunity to go beyond that, where you can actually do what I would call interactive operations, where you can actually see it in a safe environment. And you know, that's when people can do that learning in far more creative ways, you know, and you can inject scenarios that allow them to, you know, react like what the doctor would do in a real situation. And I think up to maybe 10, 15 years ago, that was not possible. It was always like, okay, here's the scenario, what would you do? And it would be hard to visualize. But I think now technology has given future doctors and maybe even other professions the opportunity to really see and dive deep into the habits of what a professional would do.
Yeah, that's the affordance or the major affordance of technology, to pull the stuff together, not create cognitive load, and let people move at their own pace, as wide and as deep as they want. That's very much the case.
Okay.
Now then, one of the big decisions, as we touched on, there's so many of these tools and technologies coming into play now that the picture on the left, if it's not obvious, is how do we see the wood from the trees, basically? With so much choice, how do you make useful choices? Well, again, it's very straightforward. We go back to that slide at the beginning, that you select the e-tools that are going to be effective for your students. But the interesting thing, if you look at all these different e-tools and you think, well, how do I get a really good organizing frame on it? Well, they all pretty much boil down to three main boxes or categories or genres. And some of the tools focus primarily on development of your content. You develop the content, you organize it, and you get it all looking nice and pretty, and then you deliver it through some medium. And I use SoftChalk, as you know. It's a paid platform, but it actually does a lot. And for people that are not techie like me, and like your skillful self, I work well with that. You can actually do all of these things. Zoom, again, we are now sharing content. We're producing and sharing content, and that's a very easy tool to use. Even I'm getting the handle on that. Now, the other kind of broad genre is communication collaboration tools. This is where people can share stuff, can chat in multiple ways, text, pictures, videos, whatever. And I think everybody's pretty familiar with most of these. Padlet is a very simple discussion thing there. Anybody can come in WhatsApp. And WhatsApp, well, it's WhatsApp, isn't it, really? We all use that, I think. And finally, assessment and feedback tools. Now, again, it's a communication tool to some extent, because the students are doing stuff and they're communicating with themselves and us, their performance. So these tools are not seen as separate. So the ability to choose a range of tools that you feel comfortable with, that are within your technical range of expertise, fit your students, fit the learning outcomes, fit the ergonomics of your environment. That's just good thinking about the selection of tools. And if you use the evidence-based approach and the framework presented, you'll soon find that you've got a nice little toolbox here that you can manage, and you haven't got to keep worrying about, oh, there's a new tool on the market, do I need to have it? The answer is probably no. But if you get time, you can have a look at it, and it might be better than one in the box. So as some of the tools become a bit redundant, you take them out. So it's not as arduous a task. However, if you don't know what you're doing, it's going to be difficult. So what we're trying to do in this particular episode is to show you how you can thoughtfully and very effectively and efficiently put together your technology aspect to your teaching if you're doing online teaching, and how to do this in an effective but also a stress-free way.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is a big learning point just for reinforcement, and this doesn't just apply necessarily to e-learning. That more is not better, better is better, and that's what we're trying to do with evidence-based creative teaching, is help teachers develop good expertise that's necessary now and for the future, without them dying in a massive wave of so much information, of which much of it is mythology and not terribly useful in practice. That's my personal opinion on that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it is just an illustration. It's the last slide, so don't get spooked by the amount of words on there. Think about the key concepts. That when you teach, you will typically have objectives. And me and you, Mark, many times we've run our workshops on reflective practice and increasingly evidence-based reflective practice. So one of our objectives is always for participants to compare and contrast different models of reflective practice. Anybody who knows anything in the field will remember Donald Shon, the reflective practitioner, and Brookfield, the different lenses, these things. So we want to get that objective across so that they understand what it is. There's different aspects of it. They can do some thinking, and then we can introduce what we might feel is a better model. So if you look at the instructional strategy, we get them to share their experiences. We then show some input, some video. We ask them to engage in that, make some inferences, interpretation, and finally we want to test understanding, those kind of things. That's our instructional strategy. And as you can see there, through that strategy we are activating a number of core principles, and if you followed it, it will make sense. They've got a clear learning goal. Can we actually compare and contrast these different models of reflective practice? So obviously we want to find out what they know, then we play around with the key concepts. We might introduce some. We want to get them thinking around the key concepts. We want to have variation in the lesson. Feedback is essential for learning, and we want to make sure that they go away with it in their long-term memory. And on the right, you can see I've just picked out some e-tools that I find and we've found will work to make that learning experience better. You don't have to use any of those tools. There's other tools that do very similar, but these are examples of tools that you could use. So that's the basic idea, and you can do this for any lesson.
So I just wanted to raise the point of, this is a classic example of the Russian doll effect. Using a variety of instructional strategies and core principles, integrating it creatively, and using the technology to help bring that learning to be a bit more accessible and a bit more meaningful. And as you rightly pointed out, it is not about the tool, because the tools you can change. For example, don't need to use Kahoot, you can be using Socrative, because it's also text for understanding. But I think the key point here is really merging or weaving good instructional strategy against the core principles, and then choosing the right technology to make sure that the learning becomes effective.
Mark, I couldn't have put that better. That's absolutely spot on at this point in time. And this is the last slide, effectively. And it's just a reinforcing point that if you don't incorporate the core principles, and particularly if you violate them, and there are still teachers doing this, then no amount of sophisticated tools will save you from. I don't think I need to say any more. And there's a quote there that captures it for me. And that's basically the end of this episode from my input. So thank you for a great interviewing strategy.
So no problem. I enjoyed myself. And again, for those who have been following us for the last 3 episodes, if you want to find out more, or if you feel that you would like to talk to Dennis and to engage him in maybe helping you to work out a strategy for making use of technology and in an evidence-based creative manner, you can contact him at dennis.sale@gmail.com, or you can check out his website at www.dennissale.com. Now, Dennis, before we end off and say goodbye, I think we are going to end the series with the 5th and final episode, where we talked a little bit about reflective practice. Maybe you can give us a line or two about what we can expect in the last episode.
Right, very simply, reflective practice has been around a long time. And many people have been doing it, but a lot of the research has shown it's not particularly effective, and it's come under some criticism. What we're going to do in the last episode, Mark, based on the research that we've done over many years, is to apply reflective practice from an evidence-based perspective. And we've come up with a methodology that we've been piloting, and I've been continuing doing that since not working with you, that has proved to be very effective.
Okay, so that's interesting. We look forward to the last series. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. And once again,